How does a country with no coastline become the center of the world? It's a question that has always fascinated me. Uzbekistan is a double landlocked nation. That means you have to cross at least two other countries to reach an ocean. On a map, it might seem isolated, a remote expanse of desert and mountains. Yet, for centuries, this very land was a vibrant, beating heart of civilization. It wasn't ships and sea lanes that defined its power, but caravans and dusty tracks. This was where empires were forged, ideas were born, and the destinies of continents were shaped in the shimmering heat of the Central Asian steppe. The story of Uzbekistan is a story of incredible resilience and transformation. It's a place where history isn't just confined to museums. You can feel it in the air. You can walk through the same city gates that once welcomed weary Silk Road merchants. You can stand in the shadow of minarets that have watched over generations of conquest and peace. This land has been a melting pot for some of the world's most powerful cultures. It has absorbed the wisdom of the Persians, the fierceness of the Mongols, and the traditions of Turkic tribes. Each wave of people left its mark, creating a unique identity that is both ancient and constantly evolving. To understand Uzbekistan, you have to understand its geography. It sits at a crucial junction, a natural bridge connecting China with the Middle East and Europe. For thousands of years, this strategic position made it indispensable. It wasn't just goods like silk and spices that traveled through here. Religions, languages, technologies, and philosophies all followed the same routes. It became a place of exchange, where a traveler from Rome might share a meal with a monk from China. This constant flow of people and ideas created a dynamic and cosmopolitan society, one that was far more connected to the outside world than its landlocked status would suggest. Today, as Uzbekistan steps into a new era, it's this incredible history that provides its foundation. The echoes of its imperial past are everywhere, from the grand monuments to the intricate patterns on a piece of local pottery. It's a legacy of being a global crossroads, a center for learning, and a survivor of immense political upheaval. The journey to understand this nation is a journey back in time, through golden ages and dark periods, to uncover how this landlocked heartland came to shape the destiny of Central Asia and, in many ways, the wider world. It's a tale of epic proportions, and it all begins on the legendary Silk Road. The names themselves sound like a whisper from a forgotten time. Samarkand, Bukhara. These weren't just cities, they were legends. They were the glittering jewels of the Silk Road, the famous trade route that was the lifeblood of the ancient world. For centuries, these oases were magnets for merchants, scholars, and adventurers. Imagine the sights and sounds, caravans of camels laden with shimmering silks from China, arriving through dusty gates. The air would have been thick with the smell of exotic spices from India and the chatter of a dozen different languages in the bustling bazaars. These cities were the ultimate crossroads, where East literally met West. In these urban centers, cultures didn't just meet. They merged and created something new and vibrant. The foundations were laid by ancient Persian civilizations, who brought sophisticated systems of governance and art. Then came waves of Turkic tribes from the north, infusing the region with their nomadic traditions and martial spirit. Later, the Mongol hordes of Genghis Khan swept through, leaving a trail of destruction, but also paving the way for a new political order. This incredible blend of Persian, Turkic, and Mongol influences created a unique cultural tapestry. You can still see it today in the faces of the people, hear it in the music, and taste it in the food. Samarkand was often called the Rome of the East, a city of breathtaking beauty and immense wealth. Its strategic location made it a key stop for anyone traveling the Silk Road. Bukhara, on the other hand, was known as a center of faith and learning, earning the title Bukhara the Noble. Its madrasas, or religious schools, attracted the brightest minds from across the Islamic world. These cities weren't just transit points for goods, they were clearinghouses for knowledge. Innovations in medicine, mathematics, and astronomy passed through their libraries and observatories, traveling from one civilization to another and enriching humanity along the way. Walking through the old quarters of these cities feels like stepping onto a film set. The narrow, winding alleyways, the grand mosques decorated with brilliant blue tiles, and the ancient trading domes all tell a story of a glorious past. You can almost hear the haggling of merchants and the call to prayer echoing through the centuries. These cities were the engines of Central Asia, driving its economy and its intellectual life. They stand as a powerful testament to an era when Uzbekistan was not on the periphery of the world, but right at its very center, connecting empires and shaping the flow of history. Out of the chaos left by the Mongol invasions, a new, formidable leader emerged. His name was Timur, known in the West as Tamerlane. He was a complex figure, a brilliant military strategist, but also a ruthless conqueror. From his base in Samarkand, Timur set out to build one of the most powerful empires the world had ever seen. His conquests stretched from India to Turkey, and his ambition was seemingly limitless. He didn't just want to conquer lands, he wanted to create a capital city that would be the envy of the world. He declared Samarkand the center of the universe, and he was determined to make it so. Timur's vision transformed the region. He brought the most skilled artisans, architects, and craftsmen from every corner of his vast empire back to Samarkand. Masons from Persia, tile makers from Syria, and stone carvers from India all worked together to build his dream. The result was an architectural revolution. They constructed colossal mosques, towering minarets, and majestic mausoleums, all adorned with intricate tilework in stunning shades of azure and turquoise. Structures like the Bibi Khanim Mosque and Timur's own tomb, the Gur-i Amir, were designed to inspire awe and project immense power. They were symbols of a new dynasty and a new golden age. This explosion of creativity wasn't just limited to architecture. The Timurid era sparked a remarkable scientific renaissance. The most brilliant example of this was Timur's own grandson, Ulugh Beg. He was a different kind of ruler, less of a warrior and more of a scholar and scientist. While he governed the empire, his true passion was the stars. In the 1420s, he built an extraordinary observatory in Samarkand. It was a 3-story marvel of engineering, equipped with a gigantic stone sextant. It was, without a doubt, one of the finest observatories in the world at that time. From this observatory, Ulugh Beg and his team of astronomers charted the heavens with astonishing accuracy. They compiled a star catalog of over 1,000 stars, calculating their positions with a precision that would not be surpassed in the West for nearly 200 years. They also calculated the length of the stellar year to within a minute of modern measurements. It was an incredible achievement. The work of Ulugh Beg represents the peak of this scientific golden age, a time when Central Asia was a global leader in astronomy and mathematics. It's a powerful reminder that this region was once a beacon of knowledge and intellectual curiosity. The arrival of Islam in Central Asia in the 8th century was one of the most transformative events in the region's history. It didn't arrive in a vacuum, but instead blended with the existing cultures and beliefs. The faith spread along the same Silk Road routes that carried merchants and their goods. Cities like Bukhara and Samarkand quickly became major centers of Islamic thought and spirituality. However, this wasn't just a simple adoption of a new religion. It was a fusion. Persian artistic traditions merged with Islamic theology, and Turkic customs found their place within new social structures, creating a unique Central Asian expression of Islam. This new spiritual energy led to the rise of madrasas, which were much more than just religious schools. They were great centers of learning, like the universities of Europe. Scholars gathered in these institutions to study not only the Quran, but also science, medicine, philosophy, and law. The madrasas of Bukhara in particular became famous throughout the Muslim world, attracting students and professors from far and wide. They were places where ancient Greek texts were preserved and studied, and where new discoveries were made. This scholarly environment helped to preserve knowledge during Europe's Dark Ages, and laid the groundwork for future scientific advancements. Art and culture flourished under this new influence. Islamic principles, particularly the discouragement of depicting human figures, led to an explosion of creativity in other forms. Calligraphy became a high art, with scribes painstakingly copying the Quran in beautiful flowing scripts. Geometric patterns and intricate floral designs, known as arabesques, became the hallmark of the region's art and architecture. You can see this incredible artistry on the walls of mosques, in the weaving of carpets, and in the decoration of pottery. It's a visual language that speaks of order, beauty, and a deep sense of a divine, interconnected universe. This cultural and intellectual flowering ensured that Central Asia's legacy would endure. While empires rose and fell, the knowledge nurtured in its madrasas and the beauty crafted by its artisans were preserved. The libraries of Bukhara and Khiva held precious manuscripts that documented centuries of thought and discovery. This deep-rooted cultural identity, a blend of Islamic faith and ancient local traditions, became the bedrock of society. It provided a sense of continuity and resilience that would prove crucial when the region faced its next great challenge: the arrival of armies from the north. The golden age of Central Asia eventually began to fade. By the 19th century, the great khanates of Bukhara, Khiva, and Kokand were in decline, weakened by internal rivalries. This created a power vacuum that a new, expanding empire was eager to fill: Russia. The Tsarist armies marched south in what became known as the Great Game, a strategic rivalry with the British Empire for control of the region. One by one, the ancient cities fell. Samarkand was captured in 1868. The Russian conquest marked the end of centuries of local rule and the beginning of a new era of foreign domination that would dramatically reshape Uzbek society. The Russian Revolution of 1917 brought an even more radical change. The Tsars were gone, replaced by the Bolsheviks and their new Soviet ideology. In 1924, the territory was formally organized into the Uzbek Soviet Socialist Republic. This wasn't just a change of flag, it was a complete social and economic upheaval. The Soviets launched a brutal campaign of collectivization, forcing farmers off their private land and onto massive, state-run cotton plantations. This policy, designed to feed the Soviet textile industry, destroyed traditional agriculture, caused widespread famine, and created an ecological disaster in the Aral Sea that lingers to this day. Under Soviet rule, religion and local culture were systematically suppressed. The state promoted atheism, and the grand madrasas and mosques that had been centers of learning for centuries were closed down. Many were turned into warehouses or museums of atheism. Religious leaders were persecuted, and practicing Islam became a dangerous act of defiance. The Arabic script, used for centuries, was replaced first with a Latin alphabet and then with Cyrillic, cutting the people off from their own literary and historical past. The goal was to erase the old identity and forge a new one: Soviet man. This period of repression lasted for over 70 years. It was a time of fear and silence for many. Generations grew up knowing little of their own history, their faith, or the achievements of their ancestors like Timur and Ulugh Beg. Yet despite the intense pressure, the Uzbek identity was not extinguished. It survived quietly, in the privacy of homes, in the stories passed down from grandparents, and in the unspoken traditions that people clung to. This deep-rooted resilience would be essential when, in 1991, the Soviet Union unexpectedly collapsed, and Uzbekistan found itself on the path to independence for the first time in modern history. The sudden collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 was a moment of both great hope and profound uncertainty for Uzbekistan. On August 31st, the country declared its independence. After more than a century of Russian and Soviet rule, Uzbekistan was finally a sovereign nation again. The man who led the country into this new era was Islam Karimov, the former head of the Communist Party of Uzbekistan. He became the nation's first president and would go on to rule for the next 25 years. His leadership was defined by a strong emphasis on stability and a cautious, gradual approach to reform. Under Karimov, the country navigated the difficult transition from a centrally planned communist economy to a market-based system. It was a challenging period, as the old economic ties to Moscow were severed. The government maintained tight control over key industries, particularly cotton and natural gas, while slowly opening the door to private enterprise. Political reforms were also slow to come. Karimov prioritized security and order above all else, often at the expense of political freedoms. His rule provided a sense of predictability during a turbulent time, but it also left many challenges for the future. One of the most significant changes during this period was a powerful cultural revival. With the constraints of Soviet ideology gone, Uzbeks began to rediscover their own history and traditions. The government promoted national heroes like Timur, recasting him not as a ruthless conqueror, but as the father of the Uzbek state. The Uzbek language, once secondary to Russian, was restored to its primary place in education and government. Mosques and madrasas were reopened, and people began to practice their faith openly again. There was a palpable sense of pride as the nation reconnected with its rich cultural and Islamic heritage. This era was about laying the foundations for a new national identity. It involved looking back to the glories of the past to build a vision for the future. While economic and political progress was often slow and complex, the cultural rebirth was vibrant and transformative. It was a time for the nation to heal from the wounds of the Soviet era and to redefine itself on its own terms. After decades of being a small part of a much larger empire, Uzbekistan was learning to stand on its own feet and reassert its place as a distinct and proud nation in the heart of Central Asia. Walking through the streets of Tashkent or Samarkand today, you can feel a new energy in the air. Since the passing of President Karimov in 2016, Uzbekistan has entered a new chapter of rapid change and openness. The country is modernizing at an incredible pace. Sleek, high-speed trains now connect the ancient Silk Road cities, whisking travelers across landscapes that once took caravans weeks to cross. There's a renewed focus on economic reform, aimed at attracting foreign investment and diversifying the economy away from its reliance on commodities like cotton. It feels like a nation confidently striding into the 21st century. This new openness has sparked a massive surge in tourism. People from all over the world are flocking to see the legendary cities of Samarkand, Bukhara, and Khiva. The government has made it easier than ever to visit, simplifying visa processes and investing in new hotels and infrastructure. This influx of visitors is not just boosting the economy, it's also helping to re-establish Uzbekistan's historic role as a meeting place for different cultures. Young Uzbeks, in particular, are embracing this change. They are tech-savvy, multilingual, and eager to share their country's story with the world, acting as proud ambassadors for a new generation. On the world stage, Uzbekistan is also redefining its role. The government is pursuing a more active and constructive foreign policy, focused on building better relationships with its Central Asian neighbors. Old border disputes are being resolved, and new trade agreements are being signed. The country is once again leveraging its strategic location, not as a battleground for empires, but as a hub for regional cooperation and diplomacy. It is positioning itself as a key player in ensuring the stability and prosperity of the entire Central Asian region, acting as a vital link between Russia, China, and the wider world. In the end, the story of Uzbekistan is a powerful lesson in how the past continues to shape the present. From its ancient origins as a cradle of empires to its modern-day revival, this nation has always been a bridge. It has been a bridge for trade, for ideas, for cultures, and for faiths. Today, it is reclaiming that identity, not just as a historical relic, but as a living, breathing reality. As it looks to the future, Uzbekistan is drawing strength from its incredible legacy, building a new national story that honors its past while embracing the opportunities of a connected, globalized world. The heart of Central Asia is beating strongly once again.